Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
We are at ICMR's NIV campus in Pune, and with me is Dr. and Professor Priya Abraham, who used to be working in CMC Vellore before and has just joined as a director on NIV about 6 months back, around the same time as this coronavirus pandemic broke. And right now I'm very grateful that she's given us time in the time when they are so busy with lot of activities and lot of demands placed in front of us. Welcome, Dr. Abraham. Ma'am, I just wanted to start with asking you what is happening, what are the developments that we are seeing from NIV at the moment?
Well, at this point in time, I think plenty is happening. Historically, we were the first to detect the SARS coronavirus 2 in the country. From then, we've gone on to do many things. Of course, if you talk about testing, we've been doing quite a bit of testing. Today, we average around 1,400 to 1,600 samples per day. Then we are also doing a whole slew of validations of different kits. I mean, if you know little about the testing, there is a collection tube known as virus transport medium. There is RNA extraction kits where you extract the RNA from the clinical material. The clinical material being the nasal and the throat swab that you've taken and put into the virus transport medium. So RNA extraction kits, and then that RNA goes into what is known as a real-time PCR. So we have been validating different makes of this, both from India and from overseas. A lot of new companies have come up. I think they've realized that there's going to be a huge need. So we've done, I think, 90% of the validations for the country. A number of other recognized laboratories are doing that, but I think the bulk of it is being done by us. So that's another big activity, because you will use the same facility that you use for testing to validate all these components of the very same assay that is used to test a patient sample. Then we also have facilities like electron microscopy. We've looked at under the electron microscope, how does the virus look when you subject it to different temperatures. We've done something known as immune electron microscopy, where you allow the virus to co-incubate it with antibody from a person who's recovered from infection. And when you do that, you will find the virus aggregating, because the antibody is binding up all the virus particles. It's called immune electron microscopy. So we've done that. We've also have people in the bioinformatics group who are looking at the drug repurposing initiatives that others are taking as well. We have another huge area where we have, as you know, we were the first to isolate the virus. Isolation of the virus is quite a big deal, because you need to have the containment facilities. You need a minimum biosafety level 3. So we managed to do that on March 9th, I think. So we have isolated the virus, we're growing up the virus. We have done companion tests like neutralization tests, making bulk antigen, which has been used actually for our this Kavach ELISA you heard about.
Yes.
And we're actually going to be inviting, we have actually put up an expression of interest for other companies who would want to take this technology forward. We will partner with different members of the industry who would like to work with this IgG ELISA, antibody detection ELISA. Then we've done also a bit of in vitro drug testing, because you have the virus, what drugs work with the virus. That's harder to do, but we have been doing for quite a few drugs. And what else? Yes, and then ICMR will require us to send out huge shipments of reactions to different parts of the country. Actually, soon after we detected and we confirmed that yes, we are harboring strains of this virus in our own country, ICMR required us to train initially 13 laboratories which are part of what is known as the virus VRDL network, Virus Research Diagnostic Laboratory Network. We trained about 13 of them. And when we train, it's online. So we are sending reagents to them with positive controls, just a toolkit, so to say, with reagents to detect the virus. And then every day we had video conferences with these labs. So when they did their first test, they sent across the results to us. And one of the senior scientists, the lady who heads the section, who's taking the brunt of this testing, Dr. Pudhar, she would look at their results and approve or fine tune and say, you can do this. So real hand holding and exchange of samples for quality control, because it's very important. I mean, it's not that you give a result, you should give the correct result. So we did a lot of hand holding, and today that network of government laboratories has expanded to, I think, 291. So they still are, we are in a WhatsApp group and they are constantly in touch with Dr. Pudhar, and so there are different laboratories at different levels of expertise, but some of the laboratories in our country have gone on to do wonderful work.
Okay.
So,
So ma'am, right now we know that we are doing more than 1 lakh tests per day. And are our facilities enough? Are they overwhelmed? Do we have enough reagents to do so many tests? What are we looking at?
So the reagents wise, that's why I told you so many validations were happening, so that we'll have alternatives to the reagents that we had started off with. So reagents, hopefully, because we've got so many, we are working on so many other alternatives and looking at their their performance characteristics. But we will run out of even things like plasticware, pipette tips, specific magnetic plates, all those kind of things, if the demand should increase more. Right now we are okay, but we don't know where this is going, and so we will have to find alternatives. And I think the Indian government is working towards ramping up in a big way. So I think we will see how it goes.
And the time taken for tests, which was earlier 12 hours, then 4 hours. So what is the time taken right now?
It's a little short of 4 hours, but I would like to round it off to 4 hours, because there is this, people think a sample comes and you bung it into a machine and walk away. That doesn't happen. When samples come, you actually get the tubes and the specimen referral form. You have to match everything, because there's a lot of care to be taken, that you're testing the right patient sample coming from a particular locality. So it starts with that, as well as careful handling of the sample, testing, cross-checking the results. So I think it actually takes less than 4 hours, but I would like to round it off to 4 hours and say 4 hours is still very decent timing.
For the testing?
I mean, even on a global standard.
Okay. Ma'am, talking about the COVID ELISA Kavach, why was ELISA technology that was selected after so many different kinds of kits came for the sero surveillance, and there were a lot of antibody tests which were validated by NIV, and finally in the field they were found not to give reliable results, and finally Indian government had to say that we'll not use them anymore. So why was ELISA chosen as the technology?
For two things. Now, if you talk about probably the debacle with those kits, so many things could affect their performance. One is, we should always, any company should ensure that there's no lot to lot variation. When a company makes a particular product, or even if you're talking about fabric or food, it comes out in batches, right?
Yeah.
So there should not be batch to batch or lot to lot variation. Then of course we don't know how they were transported, we don't know how they were stored. So I really don't know why it didn't perform well out there. And those were rapid tests. Rapid tests are little card-like devices, and they're good to work with in the field and in low resource settings. But an ELISA intrinsically has the capacity to deliver higher sensitivity and specificity. It's much easier to do than the real-time PCR, which is the test to detect current infection. So in ELISA, and then there are other, what should I say, sophistications to the ELISA where you could have automation and things like that. But an ELISA is a good tool for most laboratories to screen for antibody, which would give little better sensitivity and specificity indices as compared to a rapid diagnostic device, which was earlier referred to.
And any plans to improve the sensitivity of this particular test, because it's at 92%, which still deserves, we could go better than
Yes,
this.
it could do better, and the next effort probably downstream, and which one of our scientists has already put down as a research proposal, is to work with probably recombinant proteins or synthetic peptides. Those can enhance sensitivity and specificity to some extent.
So it will improve further from what it is right now.
Yes.
It's expected. Ma'am, how many teams are working in NIV? You mentioned so many different projects that are going on. Can you tell us about people behind it, and how has it been for the last 4 months that NIV is heading this massive effort?
Yes, as you yourself have suggested, it has been a massive effort.
Ma'am, about isolation of the virus, how many more have we isolated, and any clades that we are seeing which are common, and what is that you're seeing in terms of isolation?
No, we continue to isolate and grow up the virus. Once we found that we could isolate, we can technically isolate virus from any sample that has a reasonable amount of virus titer, and that we have established thanks to very talented scientists from. We work across 2 campuses, so that activity is in the campus that is in Pashan on Sus Road.
Okay.
So in that campus, we are actively maintaining the virus in culture. So your second question was about the variants. So this is an RNA virus, and RNA viruses are known to undergo slow mutations, point mutations, and that's nothing unusual about an RNA virus such as this. There are many ways people have classified this virus, but the classification which I'm familiar with is there is a G, there's an S, a G, a V, and an unclassified variant. And in our country, our biggest representation is of the G and the unclassified group. But in metros, particularly metro cities, Delhi, we do have a representation of the S and the V as well.
Okay. And any change in the way the disease presents accordingly?
No matter how much of variation we see, and if you actually sum up, you look at all these variants, they don't they have a 99.95% similarity, but there are, so these variants you're seeing are introductions into a population, any given population, people who have moved in from some other area, and these small point mutations suggest that these are separate introductions into a population. So yes, they are not associated with higher disease potential, any of them, or any higher transmissibility, no, not as far as I know.
Ma'am, I want to talk about the challenges and the roadmaps in both validation as well as isolating the virus. What are the common roadblocks that you're facing and your team?
Validations, it's just an ongoing job. we're getting flooded with more and more requests. So it can be it can be quite taxing for the scientists who are doing it, but they're just plodding on. They too keep very long hours, 7 days a week, and every day there's a review with headquarters about where are we, and we also sometimes have to handhold other validation centers to get them up to speed. And it's not just to validate, the report also has to get back to ICMR headquarters, because if it's a company that is doing reasonably well, then what we would do is we would put up certain specifications so that even this particular company can bid, so we make tenders. We want to in ICMR, they want to do it the proper way. So yeah, we are validating a whole number of companies. Some have not done well, and we've another thing that we have done, and I need to mention this, is companies who have not done, they've come back with their improved product, and then we validate it. Then we give them a little, you can do this. They come back. So there are companies who have come as many as 4 times back to us and then got it right. So we've also helped people develop their product, not just give them a report, good, bad, but we've also helped them technically improve their product. And we've done it for very many companies.
And what is the backlog? I mean, I've heard from companies that it takes a while, maybe 3 weeks for them to hear back from NIV on the validation.
I think that's not true. The only backlog now is with serology, because we are waiting for some guidelines. But that apart, that is not at all true.
Okay.
Because every day before I go, whether it's 8:30 or whether it's a Sunday, the scientists who are doing on this validation they come here, get my signature, and it's out. So I would really correct that, especially with RT-PCR kits and anything related to that. We are very much on the ball. I don't know whether it's with any other institute, but I can vouch for it. NIV is on the ball. Okay. Initially, if there was a perception of delay, people express their interest that they want to get it validated. Then they don't bring enough number of devices, or some component is missing, or their protocol is missing. So then till they come back with that, how can we get started? So those are the only delays, and I will be very, very emphatic about that. I mean, I will contest anybody.
And ma'am, you had mentioned something like we are here for the long run. It's already 5 months down, and we are yet to see the peak, as they say, in many of the states. Some states like Maharashtra are already, seeing too many high number of deaths. So what do you what can you predict about how the virus has been spreading, and where is it going from here?
Honestly, I'm not able to predict, but there have been predictions, like experts from the WHO have said that in India it will probably peak by around July, and then it might come down a bit. It's hard to tell in a country like ours. Yes, I think the government, and particularly ICMR, is really ramping up to more and more testing. We kept a target for 1 lakh per day, and we reached it before that. Now, we are going for higher and higher targets. But it's also hard to predict, because now we have people migrants moving from one state to another state. And we've seen, like, for instance, when people from Maharashtra went to Punjab, there was a cluster of cases there. People move from here to UP, or so as migrants move, we don't know how that would impact locally there, and what kind of containment will be there in each of the states. And I think most of the states are now drawing up their own plans. So it's hard for me to say where this will go, but we will definitely, and I think that's a universal sentiment, that nobody knows exactly how it will go. We can make predictions, but
We can't.
yeah.
Ma'am, last question. You joined the NIV as a center, as a director at the time, almost coinciding with the pandemic. What have been your greatest learnings from this time?
My greatest learnings, and this has been, I mean, this is not, I've always felt that way, that no task is too big nor too small, you know, and we live in an era of interdependence. You know, we cannot be in isolated silos. You know, we help each other, we support each other, we prop each other up for the larger cause. And as I mentioned to you earlier, I have been touched and moved by the resilience of the scientists and staff of this institute. They have really risen to the challenge, and maybe some people know, maybe some people don't know. We are not here to show this off to anybody, but as a director, I have experienced it, I have breathed it the last few months, 4 months, and I am really impressed by this institute.
From that inspirational note of how this institute has risen up to occasion, we will bid goodbye to ma'am and let her get on her busy day. This is Swagata Yadavar with Sonia Agarwal for the print.